Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Temi Talks Live here on the Wavy Baller Hub. If this is your first time joining me, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, follow the movement that is the Wavy Baller Hub, and continue to like and subscribe. Guys, just finished watching that PSG game, PSG versus Madrid game. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe what happened. Benzema hat trick, what a special player. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're going to focus on Manchester United. The topic is Marcus Rashford, one of the most polarizing players in our squad. I think that a lot of people have differing opinions on him, but there's a bit of a swaying happening, I would say, when it comes to Marcus Rashford. And I have a guest who's going to help me talk about this situation and all things tied about Marcus Rashford. Guys, if you're in the comments with me, make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to support the movement, all right? But I got my guy, TripleM with me today. He's a contributor on All For United. That's where I met him. So shout out to All For United and everyone on that channel. And I'm going to bring him right in. Marcus, aka TripleM. How you doing, bro?
Yeah, I'm good. And what about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Can't complain. I'm my head is just so gone after watching that PSG versus Madrid game. It was a wild one. I don't know if you were tuning in, but damn, what a special hat trick from Karim Benzema. But yeah, no, this Marcus Rashford situation, I wanted to discuss it. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. And this is more just like an overall analysis of his career at Manchester United. You know, I think that, when he burst onto the scene, there was no one who disliked Marcus Rashford. It's kind of hard to dislike a young player who comes to the squad, and he made an immediate impact. And now, what is it, 6 years in, I think, or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
there's definitely differing opinions on him. I'm curious to know what your thoughts on his initial career, the beginning of his career and where he is right now.
Yeah, the thing is with Marcus Rashford is he was one of my favorite players at the club, as everybody knows, for quite some time. And recently there's obviously changed because of his huge dip in form. But for me, initially, I always thought there was something special about him. I'm not one of those people that thought he had the potential to be world class. Like personally, I think people get way too overhyped when it comes to young players nowadays.
Yeah.
Like I always thought that he was just going to be good enough to get enough goals, to get enough assists, to stay in the United team, and always be in that conversation for a top class winger, but never quite, making it into the world class bracket. That was my opinion of him. Even
Mm,
when he was scoring under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and he looked like a really good player, I always thought there was so much lacking to his game. I always
yeah.
thought that because of his pace, his athleticism, he kind of got away with the fact that he didn't need to keep things simple, and now it's caught up with him.
Mm,
Now he can't just rely on scoring a worldie from outside the box. He
right.
can't just rely on cutting in and shooting because people have kind of found him out.
Right.
And
Right.
that for me is what's prevented him. Really, I've always had that issue with Marcus Rashford. I always thought that was the thing that was going to prevent him from becoming a top class player.
Yeah.
But it's a strange one. It's a strange one with
No,
Marcus.
you're so I agree with a lot of what you just said. I honestly think he did have does have world class potential, right? Just
Yeah,
the
yeah,
bare bones potential. There's very few people who have the physical gifts that he has. That's why I always said he has world class potential, right? I said, and I
yeah,
think when he was really young, I always said, if it clicks, that was kind of the thing for me. Like if it ever clicks for him,
yeah,
this guy
yeah,
will be special, right? If the other parts of his game ever come together, I thought he would be a really special player, right?
yeah,
There's very few people who have the physical attributes that Marcus Rashford has. He's blessed with immense amounts of pace, Mbappe like pace.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
blessed with the physical. Like when he was younger, he didn't have that physical stature, but now as he's getting older, you see him filling out into his body. He's like he has the physical stature to, hold if he had the mindset to hold players off, make the right passes, all this good stuff. But it's a weird one because I think maybe we as a United fan base, we fed him too early. We gave him too much love.
yeah,
We gave him too much praise, so much adulation. And I'm not coming down on him as an individual, but that stuff can get to you. Like, when you see people praising you and calling you, the next this, the next that, you're scoring goals. Even though the team isn't as successful, you're deemed as one of the best players at Manchester United. And I think
100%.
I think that I think some of that stuff got to him. I really do think some of that stuff got to him. I think that this whole mentality of, you know, um, I'm one of the best players. I'm getting paid like I'm one
Yeah,
of the best
yeah,
players. It never forced him to really work on his game. He's in the England squad. He's scoring goals for England. He's scoring goals for Manchester United. Why would I need to improve my game? Like, why would I need to improve my game?
yeah,
Like, what are
yeah.
your do you follow me there? Do you think that's a fair assessment on my part?
Nah, 100%. The way I always like to describe Marcus Rashford, especially in recent months, is he's kind of like a kid playing pro clubs on FIFA or playing my player career. When you're in bad form, instead of just sticking to the basics and trusting your teammates, you try do everything. You try be the hero. You try dribble past 3 or 4 players because
Right,
that's what you want. You're trying to create this narrative in your head that you're the best player in the world. We've all done it, when we play
right,
FIFA or
right,
PES, whichever you prefer. Right. And
right.
that's what I feel with Marcus Rashford. Like he doesn't know how to keep it simple and just rely and lean on his teammates. He thinks he has to be the star. At least that's how it comes across. And I
Yeah,
like Marcus Rashford. He was one of my favorite players at a point, and he still is one of my favorite players. But obviously, he's gone down the pecking order because he's just so frustrating to watch nowadays. And I think if somebody just really had a conversation with him, and maybe they have, maybe they haven't, but if somebody needs to have a conversation with them, say, dude, like you don't need to dribble past 3 or 4 players.
right, right, right.
Sometimes there's a player there on the overlap, just pass the ball, run into space like you always do, try stay onside this time, and just try be productive without feeling like you have to do it. I agree with your point about him definitely being getting too much praise. I feel like there's a few United players in that dressing room right now who are suffering from that. We heard Rio Ferdinand say something to the effect of that he's been reached out by player agents,
Mm-hmm.
and he's been told to stop criticizing players publicly. So there clearly is an ego issue, and I definitely would believe that Marcus Rashford is one of those players because I feel like whatever the coaches are telling him, the message is just not getting through. Like I can't
Yeah,
believe that Rolf Rangnick is happy with his performances.
yeah.
That's why
No,
he's been left out of the team so much.
no.
So
He's
you know, somebody must see what we see as fans.
right, and I think that's 100% agree. I think Ralph is not a fan of him. He hasn't played that much under Ralph Rangnick. If
Yeah,
and somebody tweeted something like, it's what did it go like? It's like it feels like Marcus Rashford has played a ton, but he really hasn't played a ton. It's just that we don't want him in the side anymore. It's a weird one.
yeah, yeah,
It's a weird
yeah.
one. Um, I don't want to stick too much to Marcus Rashford because there was another topic I did want to bring up, which is Bruno. And that was kind of
Mhm.
going to lead into the main conversation. I wanted to bring up Marcus Rashford and kind of marry that to Bruno Fernandez, and I think those are two players that especially Bruno now, and we'll get to that after we
Yeah,
finish with
yeah,
Marcus. That because of the sheer numbers that they put up in such a small period of time, it's hard to when you criticize them, it's hard to criticize a player who produces on paper, right? It's really hard
yeah,
to
yeah,
it's really hard to criticize a player that's quote unquote getting you the goals, getting you the assists, right? It's a difficult one, man. I'm a player, not a player, I'm a person who wants players to obviously put up numbers. That's not I mean, all great players
yeah,
do that. But at the same time, I think, great world class players do that. And they also have that part of their game that's so refined. Like the basics of their game are refined. And I think Marcus, and we'll talk about Bruno next, are two players who I don't think they were at young ages, they weren't asked to refine their game, right? They weren't asked to do those things that you would expect of somebody who's 25. I think Bruno's 25 now or 26, and Marcus is, 24 going on 25, something like that, right? They
yeah,
weren't.
yeah,
Bruno clearly, in my opinion, when he was in Portugal, was just doing what he wanted, like just doing whatever he wanted, scoring goals, making assists without much repercussions, right? And let's get on Bruno Fernandez now. You know, another polarizing player, another polarizing player. Like it's a weird one for me. When he came into the side, I loved everything about him. He was a breath of fresh air. We were starting fucking Andreas Pereira. We were starting Jesse Lingard at number 10, and
Jesse Lingard as well. Yeah, yeah,
it was just
yeah,
torture. It was absolute torture when an obviously better player came in and was on top of that scoring goals. It's like, oh my goodness, like
yeah,
this
yeah,
is like
yeah,
such a breath of fresh air. And now We fast forward, was it two seasons in? I think it's been 2 seasons or 2 years since he's been here.
Two seasons, yeah, going on his third actually.
Yeah, we haven't won anything. The numbers are still there, but the team isn't necessarily functioning the way I would like it to function if I had a number 10 or an attacking midfielder or whatever you want to call it. What are your thoughts on Bruno Fernandez?
Yeah, Bruno's my favorite player behind Rafael Varane. So a lot of people might say I'm a bit biased, but I think the thing about Bruno Fernandes is a lot of the people who criticize him, especially from the people that I notice on a daily basis, is they seem to discredit his numbers, and then they also seem to discredit, the stuff that he's actually good at and put him down and make him seem a lot worse than he actually is. Look, he's a frustrating player, and he has a lot about his game that needs to be improved. So I agree with you on the point that he hasn't refined his game. In fact, I don't know if you do watch the NBA or not, but I think Russell Westbrook is a similar player to Bruno Fernandes.
Thank you. Thank you. That's
they are like mirror, like they are similar players. I don't watch much of the NBA, but I know a lot about Russell Westbrook and the debates around him. Some people think, he gets numbers, but that numbers aren't everything. And it's the same thing with Bruno. Like literally the arguments are exactly the same. But for me, I think if Bruno was getting these numbers and his overall game wasn't that complete, it wouldn't be an issue if the rest of the team was balanced. And I think that's where it becomes an issue because we don't have many creative outlets. We're kind of relying on Bruno to be something that he's not, to be something that he was never going to be. And I agree with you. When he was at Portugal, he just wasn't that player. He kind of just did whatever he wanted. He kind of got the goals and assists, so he got away with it. And I think it's the same at Manchester United. And that's the thing. For me, I understand what Bruno Fernandes is, so maybe my expectations of him are different. Like I don't expect him to keep the ball a lot. I don't expect him to play the way Paul Pogba plays. And maybe that's why I'm such a huge fan of him, because I always say that Bruno Fernandes is a risk taker. If you want him to be the type of player who is refined, who does play the simple pass, who does look up before, trying to go for the hero ball and just keeping things simple, he's never going to be that player, And I don't think that should be leveled at Bruno. That should be leveled at Manchester United. That should be leveled at our coaching staff. What are we trying? What's the type of team that we're trying to build here?
Right.
So it's interesting. It's interesting. And I even thought to question whether or not he's a proper number 10, because like I was reading some scout reports around the time that we signed Bruno, like everyone, the YouTube scouts. And it seemed like he played more as an 8 at times, even for Sporting, And, it just seems like this 10 position at United, I think we're asking too much of it, and I just don't think he's ready. That's just my opinion.
And I'm not one of those people who says Bruno's a bad player. I don't subscribe to that. You can't be, same thing with Russell Westbrook. You can't be a bad player and put up those numbers. You can't be a bad player, right? Now
it's just not possible.
Is he a player that you can win a title with? That's my question, right? That's my ultimate question. Because people will look at the goals and say, obviously you can win a title with a guy who does that. But then there's an aspect of those moments of hero ball, the moments where you need composure. Like I'm not saying don't try. For me, it's not about Paul Scholes played long balls. Paul Scholes, played balls over the top and things like that. But it's those key moments where you need to, you need to make the defense tired. You need to play a quality pass. I just, he has the quality. He has those Stardust moments. Like no question, he can play. He can pick a long ball that's special. There's things he can do that others can't. Right? There's things he can do that others simply cannot do. But the fact of the matter is that, I think again he's one of those players who's been fed the idea that I'm one of the best players. I need to be the one who's making the final pass. I want to be the one who's scoring the goals, right? And I think it's a hindrance to us. I really do sometimes think his play hinders our ability to be as successful as we probably could be, right? I don't really, for me personally, I don't judge players so much on goals and assists like most people do, right? Like, like for instance, a Bernardo Silva, right? I'll take Bernardo, and this is no disrespect. He's a City player. I get that. I take Bernardo Silva over Bruno Fernandes any day. Why? Because
I would too.
One, he's just a versatile player. Two, he's a smarter footballer. Like I went to the Manchester derby, the first one, the first one at Old Trafford. I was lucky enough to go. And I'm pitched at. I'm watching Bernardo Silva. I'm like, and I'm watching Bruno
It's
Fernandez. And
just
just
he's a magician.
it's just the difference in quality is shocking. Like it's watching it in person was like, whoa, like this is quite literally. Forget about Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden. Like I'm watching it live in person. Like these guys are just every single one of these midfield players, wide players are just better than him. And it's not if he went to City, people would say, oh, if Bruno went to City, he probably wouldn't play. Pep would not tolerate that. Like Pep would just not tolerate that level of what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say selfishness, but just
he's just very erratic. Like his
thank you.
decision making is just so
That's the
reckless.
word. That's the word. I remember I remember I was watching Thierry Henry one time speak about Pep Guardiola when he played at Barcelona, and he was saying, Pep wanted him to do a certain thing a certain way, and Thierry was like, man, don't. I'm not. He just kind of just disregarded it. Scored a goal the first half. Scored a goal the first half. The team's in the lead. His team's in the lead. Whatever. Barcelona's in the lead. Pep yanks him. Pep yanks him at halftime, and he's just looking like, "Are you fucking kidding me? I just scored a goal for you." It didn't matter. Pep did not care. He wasn't doing. He wasn't performing. His decision making wasn't helping the team at its highest level, and he wants football to be played at the highest level, and then the team will win as a whole. So I think he sent a message to Henry saying, "Listen, I know you have the ability to do that, but if you play within this structure, we will win games, and you will still score goals." Right? I think that's for me where I think a lot of fans are becoming very frustrated with Bruno is like, yes, he wants to find a ball, yes, he wants that goal, but will our team ever win with him in the side? And I'm curious to know your thoughts on that. Can we win with Bruno Fernandez in our side?
The thing is, with this current squad, definitely not. But if we made some improvements and we actually got a coach in who was patient and was willing to develop Bruno, I think so. Because I think football fans are so stubborn sometimes where they think that it's impossible for a player to develop, especially at the age of 26, 27. Yeah, I agree that most players are the finished article by that point. But a lot of what Bruno has to adjust when it comes to his game, it's not talents, right? We're not talking about someone developing a yard of pace. We're not talking about someone developing the ability to dribble past five people. We're just talking about decision making. That can be improved with good coaching and good video analysis. That can be improved. So I believe that Bruno has the mental capacity and the maturity to say, you know what, I want to win trophies, and if I'm going to play for this team, this is what I have to do to change my game. But again, it goes back to the structure of the team. And that's why it gets so confused with the hatred that Bruno gets, because people pretend like we have better alternatives, right? I know some people think Pogba could play in the 10. Okay, cool. I'll let you have that one. Pogba can play in the 10. But what about the times when Pogba's injured? Like, who are we going to play there,
I agree.
And so it's one of those things where, like, Bruno for me is, he is a problem, and he's definitely very frustrating, and I understand why people don't like him. But there's higher priorities on the list of problems for Manchester United to solve, in my personal opinion. Do I think we'll ever win trophies with him? Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough. Yeah. Maybe a Carabao Cup, maybe an FA Cup. I don't know about a league title, though.
Right. Let's get in the comments. And this is Stuart. Thank you, Stuart, for joining me. I really appreciate that. He says, "Evening, lads. I hear what you're saying about Fernandes and Bernardo Silva. What you need to understand is that they are a product of their respective environments. City have an identity. We do not." So here, I completely hear that point, because I could say the same thing about Paul Pogba. I could say the same thing about Di Maria, who went and left and won trophies, or other players who have left and gone on to Ashley Young, Darmian, like all those players who have gone on to win trophies. Here's the difference, right? And here's what was really telling to me. When Bruno left Sporting, Bruno didn't win a title. I don't think Bruno won a league title at Sporting Lisbon, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think he did. I think he only won like a domestic cup, but not the actual title.
When he left, I'm pretty I'll fact check this, but I think they won a league title. I think they improved.
Yeah, they did.
So it's that to me is shocking. Like if you're quote unquote best player, right? If your quote unquote best player leaves, there should be like an effect. There should be like a a damning effect on that. And like if Harry Kane left Spurs, they're not recovering for years. They're not.
It's similar
It's
to
you know what I
it's
mean?
sorry to cut you off, but it's like
Go
it's
ahead.
similar to Grealish and Villa, right? Because
Right.
when Grealish was at Villa, people were like, oh, when Grealish gets to a bigger team, watch what he's going to do. And I always used to say, well, I think that Grealish is a quality player, but you can't just draw the conclusion because football works in a funny way where when you're playing at a small team and everything goes through you, your teammates make you look good. Your
Right.
teammates make you look so much better than you are because you have free license to do whatever you want. And that's
Right.
what Grealish had at Villa. But now that he's gone to Man City, the goals and assists have dried up. And all the things that people used to associate with him being a great player have dried up because now he's playing in this one very specific, refined role. It's
Right.
difficult. And I think the same thing happened with Bruno. The same
Right.
thing would happen with Harry Kane, to be honest with you. Like, I know that Harry Kane is considered by many to be a world class striker, but I think if he went to City, I think he would score a lot of goals, but I don't think he would be the same Harry Kane because he wouldn't need to
Right.
do as much as he did at Spurs. He's not
Yep.
carrying an entire team.
Yep.
He's
Yep.
playing a very small role in the system, and people will be like, "Oh, Harry Kane's not that good anymore." It's like, no, like he's got less to do now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's similar sort of thing. But with Bruno, I think you're 100% right. You're 100% right. And the thing is, I've always said about Bruno Fernandez, for me, at this particular moment where Manchester United are right now, I'm willing to take that trade off of him not being so good in other areas, but still providing the goals of assists just because of how bad we are and
Mhm.
how, we need that. That's the
Right.
way I kind of look at it. But, you're 100% right. From a long-term point of view, I don't think Bruno's going to work unless he changes his game up big
Right.
time.
Another good point by Stuart. Coutinho was Liverpool's best player. They won the league after he left because Liverpool invested the money wisely. Sporting will have done the
Yeah.
same with Fernandes' money. I think the biggest signing they made was or was even a signing that young kid, Pedro Goncalves, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know how much he costed them, but it's a fair point. I can't validate who they bought or anything like that, but I understand the point. For me,
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
I'm talking about overall just Liverpool. Mind you, Liverpool got like 130 million pounds for for
Philip Coutinho. Yeah.
Coutinho
Yeah.
versus 50 million pounds for I thought 45 million pounds for Bruno, was it? Something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But again, I when like you mentioned the topic of decision making, right? I
Yeah.
think once you
Yeah.
hit a certain age, you kind of are what you are, right? Once you hit that 25, 26 range, you don't really you don't vary too much. Like okay, let me give you an example, right? Paul Scholes started off as a striker, eventually moved his way back into midfield. There was parts of it, or let me use Giggs as an example because I know Giggs was somebody who refined his game. I think that's a better example, right? Giggs, when he
Yeah.
came into the side, obviously he burst onto the scene at a very young age. Came into the side earlier than Beckham, earlier than Scholes, earlier than the Nevilles. And
Yeah.
I think he was a frustrating player, like coming in, and he was a frustrating young player. But over
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
after being coached and being nurtured by Sir Alex, the parts of his game, he could do
They've just
anything with the
improved a
ball.
lot.
He just improved a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
He could do anything with the football. Ryan Giggs could literally do anything with the football. But there was moments where, or as he developed, he had to learn like, okay, this is when I go, this is when I attack, this is when I take a step back, this is when I track back, this is when I, all those parts of the game, all those parts of his game improved. You know what I mean? Whereas somebody like Marcus Rashford, like we talked about earlier, and Bruno, that period of from 18 to 24, I don't think
Yeah.
I don't think they were nurtured properly. That's on the club. I'm not blaming. It's not all their fault. It's on the clubs
Yeah.
that they were
Yeah.
at. The license that they got. It's a weird thing. I like Bruno as a human being. I think he's a very good player. I think that the challenge is that hero complex. Can he ever fix that? I don't know if you can fix that at 25 years old, right? It's a
Yeah.
difficult one for me.
Also, another problem that he has is the fact that at the moment we don't really have any stability as a club. So the way I look at it, right, a lot of players at Manchester United, they start because of their names and their reputations, right? Now, I don't need to
Right.
mention names, the Harry Maguires, etc., etc.
Right.
I
Right.
think
Right.
another problem with Bruno is that he's like the first name on the team sheet. You know what I mean? And that's a problem. Even as a person who loves Bruno Fernandez, that's a problem. Because I remember when Marcus Rashford came back from injury under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer after the stress fracture thing. I actually think even a little bit after that, one of the first things I said, and I remember it was actually on an All for United show, I said that Marcus Rashford shouldn't walk back into the team. He
Mhm.
should have to earn his place into the team. And I think if Bruno is going to fix that hero complex, and if Rashford is going to fix that hero complex, because they both suffer from the same syndrome, in my opinion,
Right.
they need time out of the team, and they need to know that you can't just score a goal and get an assist and then you're starting for the next 3 weeks. This is
Right.
Manchester
Right.
United. The standards and the bar needs to be a lot higher. You need to be doing a lot more as a
Right.
player. And so,
Right.
and I see that comment over there about Pep, what he said about goals and assists, and
Yeah.
I agree. But at the end of the day, what I'm saying is, with regards to Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford, is yes, goals and assists aren't everything. But
Right.
because of where Manchester United are right now and how bad we are, the fact that we don't have a style of play, the fact that we don't really have an identity, it is nice to have people in the team who do provide us with the goals and assists that allow us to stay relevant in a top four race.
Mm.
So it's about the trade-offs. If we were a team that was genuinely ready to challenge for titles, and the hindrance was the fact that it was Bruno and Rashford playing hero ball, then I'd be like, yeah, sell them, move them on. But that's not the biggest problem at the moment. And that's the problem I have with a lot of our fans. They
Hmm.
think that, just drop hashtag 18, just drop Marcus Rashford and everything will be fine. No, we don't have that kind of team yet. We don't
Right.
have that kind of structure. Where
Mm.
are the goals and assists going to come from if you drop Bruno, if you drop Rashford, and then for example, Ronaldo's injured, Cavani's
Mm.
injured at the moment? Where are your goals coming from?
Right.
You're going to rely on Alanga or
Right.
Sancho scoring a worldie, and it's one
Right.
of those weird things where I get people's frustrations. But again, if we're talking long term, of course, Bruno has to improve a lot. But if we're
Hmm.
talking short term, right here, right now, we wouldn't have made top four without him. We
Oh,
wouldn't
for
have been in
sure.
the Champions League without Bruno when he
Oh,
came.
of
Yeah.
course. Of
And
course.
people want to rewrite history and pretend like, oh, it wasn't Bruno. We would have been fine without him. It's like, no, bro, we were playing Pereira and Lingard in 10 position. Of course, we need Bruno at the moment, But long term, I agree. I
Yeah.
completely agree.
Yeah. And the Pep goals and assist thing is, for me, I hear your point on that. Like where would the goals come from? You know, I think that if you play, like for instance, right, if on Sunday, if we had just hypothetically played Matic and dropped to four, people are thinking, oh, how are we going to score goals if we only have two forwards? We'd have more of the ball because we're not giving it up
Giving
so
it
fast.
away.
We're
Yeah,
not giving
yeah.
it
No,
away.
I
So
agree.
the more possession you have, the more opportunity you have to
To
score
break teams
goals,
down.
to break teams down.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's a and fans don't understand this. You'll see people like put up their favorite 11s, and you see like it's all attacking players, and you're like, dude, you're not. That's not how.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is this is not how this works. This is not FIFA. This is you can't just throw seven attacking players on the pitch. Okay, so Bayern Munich did that essentially yesterday, right? That okay, they can do that, right?
Yeah, but they're
You know,
Bayern Munich
they're
though.
Bayern
Like,
Munich, right? And so like
yeah,
you
yeah,
can't use that as a barometer. I think they played like Gnabry and Coleman as wing backs, and
yeah,
they literally played almost like seven attackers yesterday. You can't do
yeah,
that normally,
yeah,
right? And they're not, and Bayern wouldn't do that against a team that's of the level that they would they'd fear or have any
yeah,
nerves
yeah,
about.
yeah.
So
I agree.
it's a weird one. I think Elanga, if we played, a formation of hypothetically, and I hate that Martial's gone because I just throw him in there, but if it's Elanga, let's just say Ronaldo, and then Matic,
Matic in the
McTominay,
midfield.
Pogba, right? I think that gives us more balance and it gives us a more of a chance to be successful, right? Because we have players who know how to
Yeah,
track back in Sancho and Elanga. That's another problem with Bruno and Rashford is their discipline defensively. That's another challenge, right? Bruno, when he's playing as a
yeah,
number 10,
yeah,
he'll
yeah.
press forward, leave gaps in
And then he
midfield.
won't come back. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
I
Marcus
agree.
Rashford just is
I
lazy.
agree.
Marcus Rashford is just lazy.
Yeah,
Let's just
yeah,
say what it is. Extremely lazy player. So it's a weird one, and it's a debate that I want us to continue to have, as a United fan base. Like this isn't I love Marcus. My first tweet on my page was dedicated to Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial.
yeah,
I love those two guys. Like those, but
yeah,
now it's come to a point where it's like Marcus, I can't I can't even defend you. Like there's nothing. I
Yeah.
never thought he was. I never thought he was a world class player. Those people were saying, "Oh, he's world class." Never thought that for a
Yeah,
million
comparing
years.
him to Kylian
And
Mbappe,
Mbappe,
and
people were
yeah,
comparing.
yeah,
I'm like, what is wrong with you guys? Like, stop it.
yeah,
Stop it.
yeah,
He scored a great penalty in the Champions League, big moment. He scored some big goals for us. No question. No question. Marcus has scored some big goals. If you look at his goal compilation, it's special, right? There's no
yeah,
question that.
yeah.
But is he a Manchester United caliber player? Like, if we are winning league titles, is Marcus Rashford in that team? No, I don't think so.
Probably not. No.
I don't think
Yeah.
so.
At best, he'd be coming off the bench as an
At
impact player.
best, and that is at
At
best.
best. Yeah.
I don't think he scored a goal at the start of this season, right? He scored most of his
Yeah.
goals off the bench, or all of his goals off the bench, in the league, I should say. And then I asked myself the same thing about Bruno. If we are at our apex, I asked myself this
Yeah.
question:
100. He wouldn't.
what side does no? I asked myself this question: like, what other top team does Bruno Fernandez get into right now? I genuinely ask myself that question. Like, does he get into Chelsea's side? I don't think so. Does he get into
I
City's
don't think
side?
he does.
City side? I don't think so. Does he get into Bayern Munich side? Does he get into Real Madrid side? Does he get into, what? And these are questions. They're difficult questions, but I think they're questions you need to ask yourself if you're a Manchester United fan. Like, obviously, I love Bruno, another guy who scored some wicked goals, like amazing goals. But there's I'm trying to find another example, like of a player that perfect example. Wesley Schneider. I'm sure you remember Wesley Schneider
I
growing up.
remember Wesley Sneijder. I caught the back end of his
Yeah,
career.
like he's his if you go and look at his stats for his career, non-existent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you look at Ronaldinho stats.
Ronaldinho is my favorite player of all time.
His stats aren't. I'm gonna pull it up real quick. I have it like these are good stats. Don't get it twisted, but they're not. I mean, Bruno is. This is what Bruno's doing. This is stuff that Bruno's doing statistically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just you can't use stats, and you can't use just numbers to deem a player is a good player. Right.
100%. No, 100%.
Yeah.
Where the thing is the way I look at it for me is like there's always this war between stat merchants and eye test merchants, and what I always say is you've got to use both. Don't use one to discredit the other, or vice versa. So for me, like that's why I keep saying the thing is that what annoys me with a lot of people that criticize Bruno is they like discredit the goals and assists. They like they try to take it away to make it seem like he's this player who does nothing right. It's like, no, you can still criticize the other aspects of his game and say it's great that he gets goals and assists. Well done, good job, but you need to improve in these other areas. I almost never hear that. I immediately just hear, oh, he's just shit, bro. He just scores tap-ins and penalties, bro. It's like, well, no, that's not true, because most of his goals on penalties and most of his goals on tap-ins, So yeah, but I completely agree with you. Overall, I don't think Bruno would be good enough if we were at our best. 100%, he would need to improve. I think he would at best be on the bench for a lot of the best teams in the world now. Maybe if you'd have asked me, when the feel good factor of the Bruno signing was still there, that first game, I think, was it against Watford? I think it was. I can't remember.
I think it was Wolves. His first game was against Wolves, and then the next game was Watford, where Watford he scored the penalty. I think he made the assist or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, if you'd had asked me around that time, I would have been like, yeah. Bruno walks into any midfield. But like now, in hindsight, having seen him, having had time to actually analyze him properly as a player, 100%. Like there's times where Bruno makes the most ridiculous attempt at a pass, and there's literally someone right next to him, and I'm thinking to myself, bro, we're 1-0 up. Just keep the ball. Just game manage. Make these guys chase shadows. There's no need. It's almost like there's a timer. Like there's a time bomb on the ball, and he has to kick it to the other side of the field so it doesn't explode near him.
Exactly.
That's what it feels like sometimes. So yeah, I completely agree with you. I just think people get confused sometimes with Bruno because I never defend him as a player. I just look at the way people criticize him. I'm like, you guys take it too far, man. Like some people say he should be in the championship. I'm like, come on, man.
It's clickbait.
You don't believe that.
It's clickbait.
Yeah, I'm like, you don't believe that,
get
bro.
likes and stuff like that. I don't. Bruno's a good player, like I mentioned. But it's a conversation we're going to continue to have. Marcus, I know we're running late on time. We went over, but I appreciate you hopping on with me, man.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you hopping on with me. Guys, Marcus's YouTube channel information as well as his Twitter information is in the bio, so make sure to support him, subscribe to his channel, follow him on Twitter. Hopefully I'm gonna get you back soon, bro. That's the goal. Just trying to get as many, smart. I want United fans who know what they're talking about on my channel. I don't want
Yeah, for
I don't
sure.
want I don't want people who are
Clickbait merchants.
clickbait merch. I don't none of that. I want
Yeah,
real
yeah, yeah.
fans who are giving real opinions, bro. So I appreciate you, bro. Thank you for showing love
Thank you
and
so
hopping
much.
on my channel, bro. And I will, guys, make sure to hit the like button for me, hit the subscribe button, follow my guy Marcus, and I will talk to all of y'all very, very shortly. Okay, deuces.
Peace.